New information tonight on Hillary Clinton apparently breaking promises to disclose foreign donations to her charity empire. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Chris Wallace in for Brett Baer. Still more revelations tonight of possible impropriety by Hillary Clinton and her family's charitable foundation. It even appears a warning from her husband, former President Bill Clinton, may have been ignored. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry explains.
One day after Hillary Clinton promised to restore trust in politics, new allegations emerged that two different offshoots of the Clinton Foundation accepted tens of millions of dollars in foreign donations, never disclosed to the public.
If your spouse is the Secretary of State, people overseas in particular want to influence you, and you can't influence American politics if you're overseas with campaign contributions. You've got to find other ways.
The remarkable part is that criticism was echoed nearly word for word 3 years ago by a surprising source, former President Bill Clinton.
And if your wife is Secretary of State and you get sponsors in another country, they may be doing it just because they believe in it, but it opens up too many questions of conflicts of interest, so we suspended those.
He was referring to a specific foundation event in Hong Kong that was canceled during the first term of the Obama administration because of concerns it conflicted with his wife's job. Except the New York Times reported today Bill Clinton appeared to have much less concern about conflicts when he worked with Frank Giustra, who was heavily involved in the Uranium One deal and helped set up a Canadian affiliate of the foundation that shielded the identities of 1,100 donors, whose money eventually funded Clinton Foundation programs, flying in the face of a memorandum of understanding signed before Hillary Clinton was confirmed as Secretary of State.
No president has ever disclosed the contributions to his foundation. So when my husband agreed to disclose the contributions to his foundation, that was a very unprecedented event.
Today, State Department spokeswoman Marie Harf defended Clinton.
I haven't talked to anyone who's seen any evidence of any link between actions taken by Secretary Clinton and donations to the Clinton Foundation or speech honorariums of the former president, which are the two things that fall under the MOU she signed.
Now the Boston Globe is reporting another foundation offshoot, Clinton Health Access Initiative, did not disclose its massive foreign donations either. This charity took in $26.7 million in foreign donations in 2010 and $55.9 million in foreign donations in 2013, a far cry from the standard Hillary Clinton held up at her confirmation hearing.
The president-elect and the foundation and I have all worked to be very transparent.
Campaign fired off a memo today touting the well-respected PolitiFact, claiming the book is, quote, trafficking in speculation. A book, by the way, that still doesn't officially come out until Tuesday, Chris.
Quite a run out. And we will have more on all this with the panel. Ed, thank you.
Chris.
Hillary Clinton has her first announced challenger for the Democratic nomination, 73-year-old Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. He says he will offer specific proposals for raising taxes on the wealthy and campaign finance reform. The self-described Democratic socialist says he should not be underestimated.
If you raise the issues that are on the hearts and minds of the American people, if you try to put together a movement which says we have got to stand together as a people and say that this capital, this beautiful capital, our country belonged to all of us and not the billionaire class, that's not raising an issue. That is winning elections. That's where the American people are.
Sanders rejects the notion his candidacy will only appeal to voters on the left. Well, the streets of Baltimore are calm at this hour ahead of a third night with a 10 p.m. curfew. Baltimore police say they've finished their criminal probe into the death of Freddie Gray and that it's now up to prosecutors. But there are growing questions about exactly how Gray sustained his spinal injuries. Correspondent Leland Vittert is live in Baltimore tonight. Leland.
And Chris, prosecutors are asking for patience while they review this report, but parts of it have already leaked out, including that Freddie Gray had a snapped neck, according to one report, and that he may have suffered a head injury consistent with the inside of the police van. And that's certainly not playing well here on the streets of Baltimore, where there are already small-scale protests despite the rain that is coming down now as these officers try to keep a fragile calm. The single source report from the local Washington ABC station says Freddie Gray's eventual fatal injuries didn't occur during his arrest as shown in this video, but rather his neck snapped while in the back of a prisoner transport van. A Washington Post report cites another prisoner in the van as saying he could hear but not see Gray bang his head against a security barrier inside the van. That report brought anger to Baltimore's already hostile streets last night.
Go home. It's time to go home.
But almost everyone heeded the words of Congressman Elijah Cummings. Bullhorns carried different messages in New York, Ferguson, Missouri, and other cities across the country where Freddie Gray's sympathy protests took place. Police made arrests, but were restrained, as they were Monday night in Baltimore, where police watched as rioters and looters owned the town. Today, the state's Republican governor walked the streets, although he got a cool reception.
Can you shake my hand, man? Yeah, sure. How are you?
And offered an explanation for the lawlessness in Baltimore.
They were overwhelmed.
Multiple senior law enforcement sources say otherwise. They claim Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake issued a stand-down order, telling police to, quote, let them loot, it's only property.
What do you have to say to the businesses who were looted because of your order to stand down?
She flatly refused to answer our questions about that or anything else when we caught up with her at a community meeting, including allegations police were not allowed to wear protective gear and fight back, a decision sources say led to some of the nearly 100 police injuries since the rioting started. And at the community meeting, she didn't talk about that either.
We will get justice for Freddie Gray if, with the nation watching, 3 black women at 3 different levels can't get justice and healing for this community, you tell me where we're going to get it.
Me? Yeah. Good.
Now, Governor Hogan, the Maryland governor's office, has walked back his comments in the past couple of minutes, saying that he misunderstood the question, claiming there is not a stand-down order now, but that he doesn't know if there was one on Monday, Chris, when our sources say that's exactly what was restraining police from restoring order to these lawless streets that night. Back to you.
Leland Vittert on the streets of Baltimore once again tonight. Leland, thank you. The State Department's Benghazi Accountability Review Board has turned over more than 4,000 pages of documents and notes to the House Select Committee on Benghazi. Chairman Trey Gowdy points out the documents were recently subpoenaed a second time after the initial request 2 years ago. Gowdy says he is still waiting for the department to produce other records that have also been requested or subpoenaed. President Obama is doing some serious arm twisting this week to try to get Democrats in Congress to approve expanded trade authority. Correspondent Kevin Cork has the latest from the White House.
Despite meeting with more than 30 pro-business Democratic lawmakers at the White House, President Obama, for the first time in his 6+ years in office, faces the likelihood of a stinging rebuke by his own party on Capitol Hill. The White House bid for so-called fast-track authority is in jeopardy, and with it, a top Obama priority, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The provision would allow the president to submit trade deals to Congress for straight up or down votes with no amendments. But in a letter to the president, Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Ohio's Sherrod Brown slammed the idea, saying it favored expediency over prudence, writing, quote, Fast Track, as currently written, would preclude Congress from amending or filibustering any trade agreement submitted to this Congress or any future Congress, potentially through 2021.
The trade deficit has exploded.
And it's not just the Senate. Opposition to the proposal has also been fierce in the House. In an online political ad, California Congressman Alan Grayson compared the trade deal to NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Critics say the agreement signed by President Bill Clinton in 1993 dramatically widened the U.S. trade imbalance, and according to the advocacy group Public Citizen, cost 845,000 U.S. jobs. Democrats have also voiced concern over TPP's food safety provisions, agriculture market access, auto sales protections, and measures to prevent currency manipulation.
Those are some of the concerns that people have. And the issue of Mexico. What is the performance since NAFTA? This bill is supposed to improve NAFTA.
What the president can guarantee will be included in a TPP agreement, if one can be reached, are enforceable labor protections that were not included in NAFTA.
With Democrats increasingly skeptical, the president is now counting on congressional Republicans to collect enough votes to move forward.
The president needs to step up his game in terms of garnering more support amongst Democrats, especially here in the House.
If Republicans can come up with 200 votes, which would probably be at or near the top of expectations, the White House would only need 17 Democrats to join the president to keep the process moving forward. But, Chris, at last count, they were well shy of that number.
Kevin Corke reporting from the White House. Kevin, thanks for that. Up next, who are the men calling the shots for Iran and the nuclear talks? First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 31 in Denver with day 4 of the trial of the shooter in the Aurora Theater massacre. Today, a police officer said right after the murders he thought James Holmes was a fellow cop because the defendant was wearing a gas mask and helmet. A dozen people, including a 4-year-old child, were killed. Fox Connecticut in Hartford with the FDA asking for more information about the effectiveness of common hand cleansers used in hospitals, doctors' offices, and nursing homes. And this is a live look at Chicago from Fox 32. The big story there tonight, the start of the NFL draft. It takes place at Roosevelt University. But Grant Park, as you can see, has been transformed into Draft Town with live music, food, player autographs, and interactive games. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.